Everyone, and welcome to video lecture 4, where we'll be talking about module 4, which is kind of a split topic, the making of a meme and the economics of the media industry. Um, Let me just say that now that we've covered the main concepts, theories, and ideas that we'll be tying the rest of the class material to, these final few video lectures don't come paired with PowerPoint files like the previous ones, and that's because for the most part, I want to spend this time talking more specifically about the assignment, how to prepare for them, and what specific ideas or issues from our course material that you should be focused on. And I'll drop some hints about how to do well on those assignments. Okay, so just keep that in mind. In Module 4, I've combined two fairly disparate issues, and you might wonder why. So I want to start by explaining this module just a bit. The module contains learning material associated firstly with memes, what exactly they are and why they are significant for our understanding of media in the context of the norms, values, beliefs, and ideologies, the claims and claims makers, other concepts we've talked about, but also in terms of what the earlier theories and theorists had to say about memes, if anything. And I shouldn't say if anything, since these earlier ideas turn out to be very useful for understanding the power and role of memes in our digital culture today. And we'll get to that. But also, we are now entering the more institutional aspects of media and its effects on society in terms of economics and politics, where we'll be considering some larger questions. Questions like who controls the media and for what purpose? Questions like what claims or claims makers are involved in establishing media narratives and messages? And questions like do our media function to promote democratic participation in society or personal well-being and happiness, or does it primarily function to distract us from the important things in life, and why might that be? Right. On this first aspect, the topic of memes, if you haven't already, I'd go ahead and learn about Lemore Schiffman's useful definition and description of a meme from the selected audiobook chapters by Schiffman located in our course learning material for this week, and pay attention to it because you'll hear where a meme, according to Schiffman, is not just a viral image or video like you're probably thinking. So pay attention to her broader definition and why it matters. You'll want to learn a little bit about the pre-internet history of memes, which is a term coined by the famous evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins. And you might wonder, why would a biologist be the one to come up with this term? Make sure you know the answer to that. It's a test question. And how understanding memes in digital culture can explain other cultural phenomena. Think about that. And in this module, there's which ends with an assignment. I'm scrolling to it now. Activity Journal 2, Making of a Meme. This second activity journal is devoted solely to memes, so be sure you've engaged in the material before attempting to reflect on the questions I've posed about memes in digital culture, remembering that full credit is only given to those who discuss, integrate, and cite, reference the course material when you write that up. Just a tip. That's all about Schiffman in this case. Think of the rest of the course learning material as belonging to the second major theme of this module, which is institutional effects, and more specifically, the effects of economics on media. In particular, I want you to be thinking about why we are so saturated with certain narratives and messages in the media, mostly devoted to, it seems to me, consumerism, celebrityhood, moral panics, and fear of the other. We'll delve deeper into race, class, and gender narratives later in the course, but it's warming you up to that. And really, for this module, the important question here becomes what narratives or ideas are absent in the media and why? You know, the why question is central here because we don't often ask that question of the media. Why would those who dominate the media landscape, those with decision-making power that is, want to distract us from important societal questions, questions about who controls the media and what their intent is in doing so, and what the intended and unintended consequences might be. I would, for this module, tackle these files out of order. I'd watch or read the material by Bob McChesney. He's a University of Illinois guy. And the article by Amy Goodman from Democracy Now!, both who are critical of the motives and strategies used by the mass media systems in for-profit multinational corporations, and how the messaging is different than when it comes from public, not-for-profit media sources. The next thing is I want to talk about the Orwell video that you're supposed to watch this week. The Orwell Rolls in His Grave critical documentary on media provides further understanding of why these questions are important in terms of effects on American culture. And I don't know if you're familiar with George Orwell or his famous novel 1984, but essentially it's a book, a fictional book where he posited a dystopian future where a corporate-run government conditions the public to be blindly obedient to their narrative, to their approved narrative, through the institutional mechanisms he conjures up in this novel. It's really interesting, and it's really reflective, really, and foreshadows modern society in some ways, which is why it's been talked about a lot recently with the media. And it might sound familiar. This book is where we get terms like Big Brother, indicating the surveillance state that we live in, and also a term that you might not have heard of if you haven't read the book, the term doublespeak, which refers to a narrative or the messaging from this powerful media conglomerate in this fictional book, saying contradictory things in the same sentence, but conditioning the public to take it as fact, sort of as a means to pacify the public and not to ask too many questions. So in the book, they talk about, the Ministry of Information that supposedly exists in the society talks about and make claims like war is peace, freedom is slavery. These phrases sound contradictory, but again, the logic isn't important. It's used to pacify the public and to cloud an issue. So you can see how it applies today, where our government indeed does try to convince us that we need a strong military machine to keep the peace, right? You got to have war if you're going to have peace. In other words, and they get us to buy into that narrative. It reminds me of a bumper sticker I actually saw. You could call it a meme in today's society. I saw it one day. I don't know who the author originally was, but it said, killing for peace is like screwing for virginity. Just mull over that one for a bit. Again, contradictory messages that are intended to cloud an issue or pacify a public is what we're talking about here. You can probably already guess what the driving force here is in the media in all these instances: money and profit, right? But take this week's material a bit further and start thinking more critically about what social consequences accrue when one of the primary socializing agents in society, the media, has such power and influence to alter an entire nation's attitudes, values, and beliefs surrounding the goals in life we're supposed to be pursuing. And think about how that's been working so far for you. This then becomes a nice segue into the next module, which explores political influence on our media system. Of course, there's almost no distinction these days between economic influence on media and political influence, because as we'll see, they're pretty much one and the same in terms of the players involved. Finally, and I'll say this again at the end of the next video lecture, but be sure to read the chapters on media and economics and the one on political influence in the media. That's chapters 3 and 4 in the 6th edition, because you're going to encounter more questions from our textbook taken from the textbook's test bank, point of fact, that I don't cover elsewhere. So to do well on the second exam coming up, you'll need to read and highlight major ideas from the textbook that I haven't covered here, and some minor ones that I haven't covered here, and be able to answer them correctly. So whereas the first exam maybe had a third of questions from the textbook, this exam has more than half, like 2/3 probably, questions come straight from the textbook, and I haven't even covered them in these lectures. So that's information you'll have to learn on your own. Just a heads up on that, okay? So I'll leave you to it. Good luck on the exam, and I'll see you in the next module.